He's. Oh, he looks like he might be ready.
If you're speaking, Andre, we are not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Good.
We can hear you now. It's like the best Verizon commercial.
That's my next gig. That's what I'm working on. That's why I want to get this podcast going, so I can get my speaking chops up. So that way, when I'm on a commercial, my voice is silky smooth.
I'm looking forward to it.
Are you going to be doing all the movie trailers and doing the in a world segments, or is that going to be you?
In a world where Don Fontaine is dead.
Yep.
Have you seen that movie, In a World?
Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, it's all right. I did a presentation about it in a women filmmakers class, and the girls in my group did not like it.
Weird, interesting. I watched it with my friend, and we tend to watch really bad romantic comedies together, like on purposely bad movies.
Yeah.
And so we saw that on Netflix, and we weren't 100%, but I knew some of the actors in it, so I was like, okay, and we both enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's not like some amazing movie, but it's fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
The girls wanted to do some Lena Dunham stuff, but I got the impression that our teacher did not like Lena Dunham, so I was like, I don't know if I want to do, like, she's not going to give us a bad grade because of it, but I was like,
She was in the most recent Wet Hot American Summer
series.
Yeah,
Lake Bell.
Yeah.
I've never seen Wet Hot American Summer.
Dude, you should.
It's something.
It is.
It depends on how irreverent you like your comedy.
Is it? How similar is it to like Spring Breakers?
It's nothing like
0%.
Zero.
Nothing.
Zero.
Spring Breakers has a beginning, middle, and end.
Now Wet Hot American Summer does have a beginning, middle, and end. It's called Wet Hot American Summer. Wet Hot American Summer.
Yeah.
First day of camp?
Yep,
and then last day of camp.
And then 10 years later.
10 years later or something.
Yep.
Oh yeah, right. So it's Wet Hot American Summer, last day of camp, 10 years later. 10 years later,
Cool.
And it was all right. But
I really liked First Day of Camp. 10 years later was fine. It made me laugh, but it was like I've watched the movie and I've watched First Day of Camp multiple times, and 10 years later I saw once and I was like, Yeah. It just didn't have the stupid joke of all of them playing like 14-year-olds and they're clearly in their 30s.
Yeah.
That
exactly.
joke's no longer there. Or 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with First Day of Camp, where it's been like 12, 13 years since they made the original movie, and then they're playing younger versions of themselves.
That's a good joke.
It's a good joke.
It's already like 20 or 30-year-olds playing teenagers, and they get even 10 years older, and then they're playing themselves again.
And Michael Showalter does not look like a teenager anymore.
No. Yeah.
No.
He's great, but he's definitely one of the people who doesn't look like he did.
Anything like what he did, yeah.
No.
But they couldn't get Bradley Cooper back for 10 years later or something?
No.
They replaced him with what's this?
Adam Scott.
Yeah, they replaced Bradley Cooper with Adam Scott.
I did think that was pretty. They did it well though, where they were just like, "Do you think anyone will notice that I had my deviated septum fixed, so there's a nose job? Like, do you think anybody will notice?" I thought it was good.
Yeah,
but I kind of preferred First Day of Camp, where they got him for Bradley Cooper for like one day, and then he was DJ Ski Mask for the rest of it.
And then there's the whole the camp the camp counselor, who's played by the guy who plays Archer.
Yeah,
that
H.
guy's
John
whole H. John Benjamin's whole shtick. I saw First Day of Camp before I saw Wet Hot American Summer.
Oh,
so the twist. I was like, what is happening?
What is this movie? Yeah, I watched Wet Hot American Summer like a few years before First Day of Camp. I wasn't super into it, Then I watched it again before first day of camp, and I liked it more. And then I liked first day of camp a lot. So then going back to the first one, I feel like I liked it a lot again. But I really liked the same team did the movie They Came Together, which is kind of
I hate that movie so much.
Really? Oh my
I
god, I
couldn't
love that
finish it.
movie. How dare you?
And when you were talking about shitty romantic comedies earlier, I was trying to remember the name of it so I could recommend
Because that
it.
was like making fun of them. As somebody who's seen like way too many garbage movies, that is like all those garbage movies to a T.
So, did you see the garbage romantic comedies that Griffin McElroy was tweeting about over the holiday break? Specifically, I have to find the name of it. There is a dog.
Oh, is it the one where the dog gets the people to get the dog plans their wedding?
Purpose?
The dog dies.
The Dog's Purpose?
No.
No.
The dog
Oh,
dies.
Marley and Me.
No. The dog dies, and it comes back as a ghost to help them plan their wedding.
Yes, and I want to see that so bad. I want to see that so bad because I watch like really bad movies with my friend, and then we also watch really bad Christian movies, and those are like a league of their own of like horrible movies where they like flat out like kidnap main characters and they're like, so we're gonna show you what Jesus is all about, and I'm like, what's happening?
One of those was filmed in my hometown. One of the I think it was called Harlow or Camp Harlow, which is a Christian camp in my hometown.
Really interesting.
Yeah,
Represent.
Yeah, there's like, I think there's a horse in it, maybe.
I wouldn't doubt it.
That narrows it down.
Has anyone seen Burning Love?
Oh, I have. Yeah.
That's another Wet Hot American Summer recommendation. I think it's very similar in like sense of humor.
Yeah,
At least maybe just because it's got Ken Marino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he a virgin in that too?
I don't remember. I feel like that's the sort of storyline that they would have used.
Yeah, no. I watched more of season 2 than I watched of season 1 with June Diane Raphael as the main cast and Bachelorette, but I feel like they would have.
Season 1 was incredibly funny, and I never really got into season 2, and then they took it off Netflix before I got time to watch it.
It was mostly on like Yahoo here, and Yahoo Screen is like the worst video service I've ever used. Like I love Community, and that's where they aired the last season of Community, and it was just like impossible to watch. I stopped watching it because of how terrible Yahoo Screen was.
I just downloaded it illegally the day afterwards.
Fair.
Wait, don't stream that, Alex.
We've been streaming for like 10 minutes.
Oh no, my crime.
Should we start?
If you want to watch a bad Christian romantic comedy, watch Christian Mingle. It is very bad.
Oh man, that movie's terrible.
It's so bad. I reference the restaurant in the movie Steaks and Cakes more than I reference like most things.
That movie's terrible.
At this restaurant, you sit at the table and they bring you like large plates of like full plates of steaks, like several steaks on the plate, and then also like full size cakes. And I'm like, what kind of restaurant do they think exists in this movie? They're like, oh, this is totally normal after church fare. And I'm like, fuck.
They can't, the radical Christians aren't allowed to go to restaurants. That's the problem.
Oh, that's true. How sad.
So they'll never know.
How sad.
You can only eat what the Lord provides.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's Tuesday.
Yeah. Speaking of what the Lord provides.
It's not Tuesday.
No, it's not.
I may live in the future, but I'm not that far in the future.
Okay, so a moment of silence and then we'll get ready for the break for the recording. Hello everybody and welcome to the latest and greatest episode of the As Yet Untitled podcast that I think that we all have yet to actually decide on whether we're deciding on the name that we've decided on.
Maybe in a few episodes we'll get one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think episode 20 we'll have a name, maybe. Just cross our fingers.
Yeah, ignore the stream. Ignore the stream title.
Uh,
That's a red herring.
Definitely, I agree. So I am your, I don't know, moderator, Sam Harrison, and with me today we have got Alex.
I have seen Terminator 2 director's cut at least 15 times.
Whoa, very good.
If you want to have a discussion about how many times we've seen a film, after I've introduced everyone, we'll talk about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie.
Okay, sounds good.
Next up, we have Alison.
Hi, I've seen the movie Serenity about at least 20 times, and most of them in theaters. Woo!
Damn.
When I went to see Serenity, everyone clapped at the end. It's the first time I'd ever been to see a film where people clapped.
That's cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, there were 20 people in the cinema, so it wasn't that big of an achievement. And finally, we've got Andre. How you doing, Andre? Living in the future.
I live in the future, and I need to get in my flying car because I did not prepare and count the amount of times I've seen a particular movie. I saw the J.J. Abrams first Star Trek in theaters like 4 or 5 times. Not all because I wanted to see it, but because people were like, "Hey, let's hang out and go to a movie," and then it was Star Trek. I was like, damn it. I still think that movie's pretty good and like fun, but it was like,
It's a really good movie.
again? I spent so much money to see this in theaters. God damn it.
Yeah, it's a fun movie, and I think I saw it a few times in theaters too because it was like that time in my life, but I don't know if I would have seen it 8 times in theaters.
It's probably like
okay, so let's talk about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie.
Before we do
seconds.
that, let's have a moment of silence for our lost brethren. We have Erica Hernandez, who is currently just dead on a bed somewhere because of a migraine.
How sad.
And
She is missed.
sounds like more like a her grain.
Oh my god.
and then we have Pat J. Cotter, who is recently deceased but will be joining us very soon.
Stuck in traffic.
He's stuck in
Ghost of
traffic.
Pat Connor.
So if you're late to a podcast, does that make you a ghost?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, now I feel like I kind of want to be late to a podcast just so I can be a ghost.
Yeah, you'll be ethereal for a few moments.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
No, only a few moments. I was gonna say, like, if I have to be a ghost for the rest of forever, it's not worth it. I'm never gonna be late.
Depends on what you can do. Could you imagine if you could I can read any book, but you can't turn the pages, so you have to stand behind someone and wait for them to turn the page.
So speaking of ghosts and the romantic comedies we were talking about earlier, there's a movie called The Spirit of Christmas where a ghost comes back, but for only the 12 days of Christmas. But he is physical. He can eat during that time. He just can't leave the house he's haunting. And it doesn't seem like he remembers
situation.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like he remembers the time he's not there. So he's just around for 12 days a year, doesn't age, but he can eat and he can touch stuff. So I'm like, that seems like a pretty not bad deal.
Yeah.
It just sounds like an American Horror Story.
Man.
It was not a very good movie.
Let me tell you about this movie starring Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore, and Whoopi Goldberg.
So just to finish my anecdote, the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. So as you all know, my PlayStation Network ID is SpiderFan2099.
Now you get
same
so many
on Steam.
messages asking to be your friend because we're so popular.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I've already turned my notifications off. Got my blue tick. And I'm a big Spider-Man fan. Always have been. Always will be. And I used to work in Currys, which is like Best Buy, and it was, I would say, 2 doors down from a cinema. When I turned 18, that summer was the summer when Spider-Man the movie came out. So I worked 2 doors down from the cinema, and back in the day, cinema prices were extremely cheap for no reason. So I think I saw that film, I want to say 10 to 15 times in the cinema.
Good lord.
Jeez,
in the
first
movie,
run?
in the theaters, wow.
Yeah, first run. And then, so what I would do is I'd finish work and I'd be like, well, I've got nothing to do tonight. And I would just go 2 doors down and watch Spider-Man. Because I used to go to cinema all the time by myself because I lived so close to the cinema. I never saw it as a weird thing.
Hey, I go to
And then everyone,
cinema all by myself all the time. It's not weird. It's not.
yeah. But I go more frequently again now that I live near a cheap, convenient cinema. But yeah, so I just went, all the time, and I worked there for a whole summer, and I went probably 2-3 times a week. And then a friend of mine had a pirate copy of the movie on VHS, which he gave to me so that I could copy it onto a second VHS. And what I would do is I would finish my day of work or whatever. I would come home and I'd be like, well, British TV is terrible. There's nothing on. And like the internet doesn't exist. So I can't watch what I want when I want. So I would just put Spider-Man in the video player and I would watch it. I would rewind it and I would watch it again. And then I would probably do it a third time, then I would go to bed. So I think I, on a conservative estimate, have seen the original Spider-Man movie 600 to 700 times.
Good Lord.
I know most of the dialogue by heart.
Okay.
That puts all of my movie rewatching to shame. Bravo.
I've not done anything similar since, but that one specific movie caught me at the right time. I had no money to do anything else because I was going to university.
You spent so much money going to see Spider-Man. Jesus.
It was like £4 a ticket. It was fine. That wasn't even an hour's wage. But this is ostensibly a games podcast.
Yes. Ostensibly.
Theoretically.
Get ready for the most off-topic episode of all time. First off, I think normally we would go through what we've been playing. So I think it's only fair to start with Andre, as he's got up so early in the morning.
Okay, yes, collect my thoughts. Last week I talked about playing some betas. This week I think I did the same thing. Played some PUBG. That was all right. No chicken dinners this week. Only played a little bit. I got like a $16 pair of glasses out of one of the new crates. But they're flashy enough that like I kind of want to keep them. So I'm doing that. Played some more of the Dragon Ball Fighters beta. I was doing pretty well in like the initial run up. They fixed the like server issues that we're having that were leading to like mid-match drops and getting kicked out of the lobby constantly. So that was good. It was a much better experience at that point. But then when they ran another 24-hour period on like Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. I think it was Wednesday. And when I started playing online, I was just getting worked over, which was not happening the week before. I won like 3/4 of my matches or more during the weekend beta, but during this one, I won like maybe 2 games, which was a bummer. I was like, oh man, I felt good before. So, that's a bummer, but I'm still, happy with that game and how it feels. And I look forward to getting to like actually learn stuff and try stuff out. Other thing I think was just the Monster Hunter beta. I think that was all. Yeah, that game seems pretty good. I tried, I had already taken down the first 3 missions in it in the previous beta, so that was like nothing new. But I kind of messed around in the training with the other weapons and stuff. I played a little bit with Sam on like the first mission. We tried to do the second mission, but we ran out of time because just couldn't find that monster. That was weird.
Yeah, it took forever.
I think I just went the wrong way or something when we were looking for it. So yeah, replayed some of that stuff. Tried to take down the Nergigante, which I ran out of time on. I did not die against it, but I ran out of time, which was a bummer. So maybe I just need to try and do that with some people. We'll see. I don't know. That beta's almost over. So I don't know. I was trying to matchmake last night before I went to bed, but that seems kind of busted in the beta. And last thing I was playing is Type Shift on the Android operating system. It was on iOS before, but just recently came to Android, or at least somewhat recently. I just saw it show up in the like highlighted games in the store. That game seems pretty fun. I'm kind of bad at it, just because I don't know, those kind of puzzles aren't for me, I guess, but I still enjoy it. So yeah, if you're on Android and you haven't checked it out, check out Type Shift.
That's cool. That's the one.
And also watching. I've also been watching a lot of Dragon Ball Super, and I am sad to find out that it might be ending soon. There's a movie coming out in December that apparently they are putting like a ton of work into. Like Akira Toriyama is 100% on board that movie, and they're pulling like tons of like artists and directors onto it. So apparently the art direction in like the later bits of Super, or like the animation, the art is like kind of like so hopefully that movie's good and they keep doing stuff with Dragon Ball, because Super is really good. And Goku reveals somewhere in there that he has never kissed his wife on the mouth.
Well,
he has an adult son and like a 6-year-old son.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
But
that is the show that keeps on giving.
To step back, the Type Shift game is the one where it's basically like a grid of letters, and then you're pulling the letters up and down and spelling stuff out of it, right?
Yeah,
slowly up and down.
Yeah, there are a couple different modes. Ones where like it's kind of like a crossword where it'll have like a bunch of clues to tell, and then like once you think you've spelled the right word, then you like hit the clue and then it like crosses it out. And so there's like that mode, and there's also just like the spell as many words as you can.
Smell as many words as you can. Yes, please.
That's once maybe next CES we'll finally get the smell-o-vision technology in the phones, and then that'll be a reality.
Oh, that would be so good.
Yeah, I've also been playing Monster Hunter, so I might piggyback off the back of that one if nobody else minds.
Go for it.
So yeah, I've also been playing Monster Hunter. It's my first Monster Hunter. I was saying to Andre when we were playing that I've given Monster Hunters about 3 to 5 hours, about 3 to 5 times. So I probably played about 2, maybe 3 hours worth of this Monster Hunter beta already, and don't feel as out of my depth as I did previously.
That's good.
I've always found animation priority games really difficult. So like Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, all those games where it's like, if I commit to a move, I've done it. I've always found those games essentially impossible and like die on the easiest enemies. I think Bloodborne, it took me about 45 minutes to get out of the first room that you spawn in with the werewolf.
Wow.
I'm bad at animation priority games. But this Monster Hunter, I think the combination of the fact that after me and Andre played last night, where I just kind of went with the first weapon that looked fun, this morning I did the training mode and tried every single weapon out and just saw how I felt about each one, how it changed the way you run, changed the way you move, different combos. And I picked a couple of favorites, and then I went into the missions and did, because Andre and I had done the first one. I did the second 2 by myself. And one of the reasons I wanted to do the more difficult ones by myself was I was like, I don't want to buy this game if I can't go far with it. You know, I'm not going to spend 40 quid on something that I'm going to play for 5-10 hours and then be like, no, this is too hard for me. So, yeah, it wasn't too hard for me. I managed to beat the second tier monster and the third tier one. The second tier one, I did die halfway through and finished it with about a minute left. But the third tier one, I had like almost 3 minutes left on the clock. So that felt pretty good. And I've started using the Wyvern blade. It's the charge blade, isn't it? The Wyvern one.
No, it's not the charge blade. It's like the long sword. Oh, what is it? Not long sword. I think it might be a long sword.
Might be. It's the one that when you attack, you charge it up and then you fire it off with R2.
Oh, that's like the evergreen blade.
It's very good. A lot of fun.
Yeah. The Wyvern blade is the long sword. It's like the giant Sephiroth sword type weapon.
Yeah, so that's what I'll be going with, I think, when I play the main game. And also, I got my character to look like Tommy Wiseau, He was an almost exact replica of his face is one of the presets, which made me laugh a lot. It's very much like I made the character and then just chef's kiss. Was like, nope, not going to do any more. No more character customization. Don't need to go any further. But yeah, I'm super looking forward to that full game now.
Yeah.
I'm going to try my hand and recruit some people and do the Neo Gigante, or maybe see if some people want to try and take on Diabolos.
The weird thing is, in previous Monster Hunter games, at least the ones I've played, like the multiplayer missions and the single player missions were separate.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that'll be the same, or I wonder if you'll be able to like team up and co-op the story stuff.
I have a feeling that this game is going to take a lot of cues from Destiny, from the way that it seemed to play when we were playing together.
Yeah, it might.
I feel like if Capcom aren't making a game for Western audiences, which has got drop in, drop out co-op for the whole game, I think that they'll find themselves. I don't know. I think that they'll find themselves with a lot of confused purchases.
Maybe. That is entirely possible, and like they are making it more accessible. I haven't actually looked into it, and maybe that info isn't even out. But yeah, I wonder if it'll be a hey, here are like separate co-op missions that you unlock by doing the single player, or like the higher you get in single player, the better. Like the more difficult co-op missions you can do, or if you can do, or if it's all the same, or if there's I don't know.
Yeah, I'm super interested in playing that game. I was semi-interested in Dragon Ball Fighters, but I think I really need to actually finish Tekken 7 story mode before I buy another fighting game.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I've also played multiple other games this week. Last week I basically only played Destiny, but this week I also played about 3 hours of World of Warcraft. So that was a weird pull because I haven't played that since 2008.
Wow.
What brought you
basically
in?
10 years.
It's a totally different game now.
Yeah, it is a very different game. I was playing a gnome called Not Mario. And I'm trying to find clothes that look as much like Mario's outfit as possible.
Do they have dye in that game now? Do they
have dye? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You can maybe get like a guild banner with a mushroom or something, and then.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I reckon I can go far with it. I'm only playing the starter edition, which is quite cool. It's completely free up to level 20, so you can play the latest content as well. And so it's everything. If you've got World of Warcraft, you get everything up to except the latest expansion for free. So, I've only got on my account up to Wrath of the Lich King of actual purchased expansions. But when I log in, it has everything all the way up to whatever the one before Legion was, Warlords of Draenor, which is kind of cool, really. They're giving away a lot of content to people who haven't paid for that content.
Yeah, I mean, well, they need to get people on board at this point somehow, because
exactly.
There's a lot of stuff to buy.
Yeah, there's like 9 expansions, I think, at this point.
Also, asking people to buy all that and then pay a monthly subscription is a hard bargain to run on by getting people into the game.
So
at this point,
how does WoW's whole thing work? I remember hearing tell that they're being able to go back to like the classic 1.0 server or like the original version or something like that. What's up with that?
That's launching this year with the new expansion, Battle for Azeroth.
Okay.
So yeah, it'll probably be it's like own sets of servers where it's. I don't know. I haven't followed it because I don't like having played on like that original WoW. It's real slow going. You don't level up very fast. Takes a long time to get places. You don't get a mount till level 40. Now you get it like level 20. Like you get like and then you get like a faster one level 40. So like I mean if people want that go for it, but
all power to them, but it's not for me.
Yeah. No. I've played on like some custom servers that are kind of do the hey, come play on like there's a different type of like get like insane amounts of experience really fast, get any item you want at any time.
That sounds great.
Get a 4 strength, 4
Yeah,
stamina under belt.
but also it kind of sucks out all the fun. Like it's a loot game, so then
Yeah.
suddenly you don't have any reason to get any loot or do any quests. You're just like, I'm max level, so I don't know. I guess if you just want to raid and stuff, that's fine. But
yeah, so I play a little bit of WoW. Can't really say all that much about it apart from that it's the playability is quite streamlined. It's a lot of fun still, which is really interesting, and it's kind of cool to see. I'm playing the game on Ultra, so it's kind of cool to see the world as I remember it being, but not how it looked at all. So that's kind of fun. And on top of that, I'm sure I had a third game. I've been playing Destiny, obviously. I played some Destiny 2 with Erica and Xavier this week. Xavier, sorry, I keep pronouncing his name wrong. This week, and that's still a very good game. I think that I've hit like level 14 on the PC version. I'm trying not to push through too much. I think the first weekend that Zero sells something I'm interested in will be the one that I just push it all the way to the end and get to level 20. I'm probably only about 2-3 hours away if I solidly play the story. And then finally, the one game that I'm excited to talk about more than the others this week is Oxenfree.
Oh yeah.
So Oxenfree came out for the Switch last year, I think, and PC the year before.
I think it was more than the year before. I think it was like 2 years ago.
Oh,
I thought it was the year before.
Maybe.
I thought people were talking about it for like Game of the Year type stuff from last year.
I felt so like that.
No, 2016, January 15, 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, so super old 2016 now. So yeah, I've never played Oxenfree. It's I've literally have seen maybe like 2 shots of the game. Never seen a trailer, never seen anything about it. But it was on sale on the UK Switch store for £3.99.
Oh, nice.
Which is less than it will cost you to get a cup of coffee at Starbucks here. So I thought I'll give it a punt. And I've been playing it all day pretty much, apart from breaks for meals and reading comics and hanging out with my cat. So
your poor cat.
It's poor boy. For context, my cat's had his balls cut off today. One of the 2 cats. But yeah, it's really good. It translates really well to Switch. One of the big things I'd say about it is that the dialogue's fantastic. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of Night in the Woods.
That's what I was going to say too. Yeah.
There's a really deliberate pace to the movement. Like the game will slow and speed you up depending on what's going on. And that's one of the things that I hated about Night in the Woods was how slow the game felt to play. But when I'm playing Oxenfree, it just feels like the right speed, if that makes sense. And also, things start happening a lot quicker in Oxenfree. But also, I feel like the dialogue is very similar in terms of realism. They sound like real things real teenagers would say to each other in the same way that you get in Night in the Woods. I would also say that I much prefer that Oxenfree is fully voiced. That was a big complaint I had with Night in the Woods, which was kind of that much reading, because I played it all in one session as well. That much reading in one session almost made me fall asleep a couple of times. And I haven't had that with Oxenfree at all. I've been super engaged with it. Although I will say that I really, really dislike the dialogue system to start with, because the way that it works is that even if you guys have played it, I will explain for the audience. But basically, the 4 face buttons, the top, there's 3 replies to every statement, or like if you're prompted to speak, there's 3 replies, and they'll flash up basically as soon as the other person starts speaking, and they'll start to slowly fade out. And once they're gone, and you just say nothing. But as they're fading out, you can still make a response. But a lot of the time in the early game, when you make your response, you interrupt the other person. And I was so it's very much like real conversation in that when you press the button to say what you want to say, you say it straight away. But I'm kind of used to being able to listen to the dialogue, and I'm finding this a lot of times that I was missing my opportunity to speak by wanting to listen to what the characters were saying. That kind of stops after about the first hour of the game, and there's only a few times where you can interrupt other people. A lot of the time, the speech bubble will once you've selected it, it will stay visible until the other person stops speaking, and then your dialogue goes. But there's a really interesting part where like you and the other characters have an argument, and in that, when you select a speech option, Alex, the main character, just jumps in, and it's really cool. It's really well done. Like I said, I hated it at the beginning, but now I see a lot more benefit in it. I'd really recommend Oxenfree, especially if it's on sale on the Switch store for other people, or if it's cheap anywhere else. But I've mostly played it in portable mode as well. The soundtrack is absolutely brilliant. I really loved it. I was very tempted to listen to it on Spotify whilst I was reading this afternoon as well. So yeah, it looks great. It plays pretty well, actually. There's a cool mechanic where, in order to get, instead of there's like audio log style things all over the world, but the way that you access them is you tune your handheld radio into the frequency. So you've got like a handheld FM radio, and as you're walking around, there'll be like a kind of a thing in the environment that lets you know that there's a secret there, and you just tune the radio until you hit like a weird frequency, and then you'll hear some cool dialogue. It's really well done.
Do you have to look on the back of the box to find the frequency?
Unfortunately, there's no physical box. You just have to go. You just kind of fiddle the dial backwards and forwards. But it only goes in increment. It doesn't go in like big increments. It's only like 89 to 107, and it's really cool. I'd really recommend it to pretty much anyone, I think.
If you go to like the Switch store page, is there like a thing that's like, "Hey, Monica here. Here's the frequency you need to go to."
No, I would also have been big on that.
Do you have to plug into?
I'm sorry.
Do you have to plug into port 2 for your controller?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Both Joy-Cons go in the right slot.
Did you finish the game already?
No. I think I'm pretty close.
I'd be interested in having a conversation about it when you finish it. That game was easily in my top 5 games in the year before last. It's an incredible game. I'm thinking if I can force myself to wait, I will wait and finish the game next Saturday so that the thoughts are fresh. But to be honest, I had to really stop myself from playing it right up until 10 o'clock when we started to record.
Yeah.
I actually am so interested to have a conversation about the way that game story goes that I may try to replay it next week, because it's really, really good.
I'm vaguely interested in doing that too, because I really liked Oxenfree a lot, but since it's been a while, I played it not too long after it came out, so I feel like it's not at all fresh in my mind.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
I need to refresh, because I really liked it, but if you asked me to recall all of the story beats, I'd be like, I don't remember any of that. So
yeah, it's got really good dialogue, really, really well written.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I'm literally at the point where about 10, 20 minutes ago, we've had the big argument in the communications tower.
It's a great scene.
Yeah, and I thought that was really well done. But that's where I am, so I don't know how close I am to the end. I've been playing for probably, I'd say, at least 3 hours or so. So it's apparently only 4 hours long.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So
Yeah.
have all of you guys played Oxenfree, and I'm just extolling its virtues 2 years later.
It's a great game. And
No,
how is it on
no,
Switch?
Very
Like, are you playing it in handheld mode on the Switch?
Yeah, like 90% handheld mode. I played about 10 minutes on the TV, maybe even less than that actually. So I have a Sony Bravia TV, and very, very weirdly, for certain types of media, the music will play too loud. It happens in most movies that I watch on my PS4. So if I watch a Blu-ray on the PS4, the background sound will be way, way wrong, like mixed completely too loud.
Weird.
If I watch it on the Xbox One Blu-ray player, absolutely fine. And it's never triggered on the Switch, but for Oxenfree, I don't know whether the opening music was really, really loud, but I was having trouble hearing the dialogue and had to turn the subtitles on.
I had that issue even on PC myself. I think that game just has some mixing issues in the early parts.
It's been fine in portable mode, I have to say. It's been absolutely like with headphones on or just listening to the Switch speakers. It's been always been fine.
Interesting. It might be because I use a TV to play games on. Like my PC's directly plugged into it, so it could just be that for whatever reason the way the audio gets mixed on like TV stereo speakers, that's what causes the problem.
Possibly, yeah. But yeah, so as soon as that started happening, I was like, no, what? I'll just play in handheld mode. The Switch is great. I can go sit upstairs on my armchair and play. And so I did that.
It's pretty too, but it's not like a visual spectacle that needs to be experienced on television or anything.
Right.
I've really enjoyed it on the Switch, I have to say. I think that the small screen's done it some real good. It's also, you can play it fully using touch and not using controls.
Ah, that's cool.
Sweet.
I have not used the touch controls at all, apart from to navigate the menus. But I have thought, I think it's really cool. I assumed it's because they ported it to iOS or something, and I just haven't seen it before. But yeah, I'd highly recommend that game, I have to say. Any Brits, it's £3.99. That's basically nothing.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
And
I think that's everything. I've probably played other stuff, but I can't remember. So it can't have been that great.
yeah.
Oh, wait. I know exactly what I played, and it was great. It was Zoo Tycoon. I played Zoo Tycoon.
Yes.
What? Sure.
Nice.
Why not?
Yes.
The Zoo Tycoon Ultimate Animal Edition was free on Game Pass this month. So I started that, and it's a great game. It's very weird. And it's just like one of those sit back, relax, nothing's going to happen to you games.
Is that the one that launched on the Xbox?
Yeah, the one that launched for Xbox One.
Did any of you guys, when you were in school or whatever, play Dinosaur Tycoon?
Oh yeah.
No.
That game was
Maybe.
rad. They should make a new Dinosaur Tycoon.
Yes.
Well, it's called Ultimate Animal Edition. I've not seen all the animals yet, so
Oh, could be
you
there.
never know. Could unlock a Velociraptor.
I mean, there was an expansion for Zoo Tycoon that had dinosaurs in it too, like the
Cool.
PC Zoo Tycoon.
There you go. Precedent's been set. Speaking of precedents, you may have noticed we have a new voice joining the podcast, Pat.
Yeah.
Yay.
Raised from the dead.
Whoa, where'd he come from?
He hasn't been quiet the whole time we were talking about how many times we'd seen a movie. Pat, what do you think is the most times you have seen a single movie?
We're talking like in the theater or combined between home
It's
and
totally
away?
forever.
Either.
Yeah.
That's tough. Probably, I've probably seen The Fellowship of the Ring 35, 40 times.
Good
I've
Lord.
probably seen Alien around 100 times.
Good Lord.
Wow.
I mean,
Good movie.
there's a lot of movies that I have seen. Alien is my
Okay.
favorite movie, which is why I've seen it so many times. But
It's the best Alien movie.
yes, it is. The original Star Wars, probably close to 100 times too. So I've definitely watched a lot of movies over and over again in my life. But the most times that I've seen a movie at the theater, I think, was Mad Max Fury Road, and I think I saw it 10 times at the theater.
Oh, man, that's a
movie
good
was
one.
great.
It's a good one.
It was
any
so
of you
good
see
in
the-
theaters.
It was great
very
in
good
theaters. Did
Yeah.
anybody see the black and white or black and chrome version in theaters?
No.
Oh,
That was good.
yeah.
That was really good.
I've actually never
Um,
seen that on Blu-ray or home video, just in the theater. But I will watch it again soon, I'm sure.
Star Wars: A New Hope is the only original Star Wars movie that I've seen in the cinema.
Yeah.
When they did the re-releases, that was the one my dad really wanted to go and see. Whereas I wanted to go to Return of the Jedi, which is my favorite Star Wars movie.
My parents took me. Yeah, my parents took me to all three of those, and I feel like that was like
Oh,
an almost formative experience for me
Yeah,
in terms
same.
of liking like science fiction, in terms of liking cinema. It was I barely remember because I was not quite 6 at the time, but I just remember my mind being completely blown by like, what is this amazing thing that I just witnessed?
the first film I ever saw in the cinema was Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. So my dad set me up. I think I was about 7. No, I was even younger because I was like 5 maybe. I have no recollection of that film at all. But it's the first film I've seen in the cinema.
It's a weird one to
Very
start you on.
good.
Of all the Star Trek
This-
movies.
We
Yeah,
should,
he's
we
a
should
huge Star
probably
Trek.
get back to what we played.
Video games. Yeah. Sorry. We've had
Pat's
a really
here,
off
which is
topic
good.
show so far.
So I love talking
Honestly,
about
Erica
movies, but
keeps
that's
us on
not this
track.
podcast.
Alison, what have you been playing?
Yes, I've been playing a few different games. Like I've mentioned on the past couple of podcasts, I just finished the last Zero Escape game, Zero Time Dilemma,
Dang.
which kind of blew my mind, but in a good way. All of those games have such good twists and such good writing that series has gone from is immediately in one of my favorite game series of all time. I really loved those. So I am very sad that there's no new ones for me to play. But the story was really good, and I reached out to the director on Twitter to thank him for the experience, and he liked that tweet. So that was exciting.
Aw, that's endearing.
I was just like, thank you. I love these games. But yeah, so I totally recommend them if you guys haven't played them. I don't want to spoil them because those games are spoilery. And I think that I'm really glad that I didn't have any spoilers going into them. But there are some twists and turns that are good. And then after that, I kind of wanted something a little bit lighter. So I've been playing more of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is by far the most anime game I've ever played in my life. which I was like thinking of ways
to that.
I was trying to think of ways to describe it. I'm like, this is just anime. But I'm actually enjoying it. I think that it's some of the character designs are a little something, but the world is really fun to play around in. Some of the systems are kind of weird, like the finding your way around can be a little bit annoying because the only way that you can really get a full map is to go into like your fast travel menus, and it's like trying to find. There have been a couple of times where I'm like, where do I go here? How do I find my way around? But I've been enjoying that. Because I think it works really well on Switch too, because having it in mobile has been really, really nice. And I've just been getting a little bit back into Hearthstone. With that game, I tend to play it really, really hard for a few months and then leave it for a few months and then get back really into it for a while. And I'm back into it playing the dungeon run mode, which is the single player mode where you go through different bosses of increasing difficulty, and that's been really fun. I'm not a particularly good Hearthstone player, especially when it comes to deck construction. So this mode has been fun because it's more about playing the deck that they give you and then kind of building up from that. Because if I need to build a deck, I will be sitting in front of like one of the Hearthstone sites trying to like figure out which card goes with which, and I'm not very good at that. So it's been a fun mode to play around with this week.
Fair enough.
Cool. And Alex, anything you've been up to you want to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't get a ton of game time this week. At my work, it was crunch week. So, you know how it is if you've ever done development where you're literally working until midnight or 1 in the morning. But I did manage to squeeze a few things in. One I was going to talk about in hushed tones and very ambiguously. I went back and played the ending of Danganronpa 3 again and talked with Erica about it for like at least an hour and a half. Just like, she's like, I'm never going to get to this game. Like it's on my list, but like my pile is so big, just spoil it for me. So we talked about like the overall story of that game and the ending for like at least an hour and a half, but she's not here, so can't even talk about it. Let's see. I also played the Monster Hunter beta, but I didn't play enough of it to really have an opinion. I just did two of the dudes on my own. I haven't had a chance to do it with anyone else. It seems cool. Animation priority heavy, everything we've already talked about. And the last game I played was another indie game, and another indie game that I'm sure none of you have played, but this one has nothing to do with poop. And, well, not that I've seen. It could. I haven't finished it there. So it has a bit of a backstory that I need to get into first, if that's all right.
Go for it.
All right. So
the Patriots go back all the way to World War II.
So I was turned on to the game by my girlfriend, Cheska, because she works for a company called the Casual Games Association, or Computer Games Association, I think they changed it to. And they have a show called Casual Connect. And that show was just happening in Anaheim at Disneyland Hotel this past week. So what it is it's basically, if you guys are familiar with GDC, it's a developer-focused conference. So it's not like PAX, it's not for the fans, it's totally for developers. There's lectures, there's a bunch of indie studios showing off their games, things like that. And running alongside it, they have something called the Indie Prize Awards. And that is... there's like 30 or 40 judges that judge the 60 games that get admitted to the show. And they have awards for like best audio and best art and, like pretty boilerplate stuff that you would expect from Game Awards. But there's one award which is their game of show, and that is decided by the attendees of the show. It's basically a write-in kind of scenario. And out of all of these 60 amazing, like really strong games, this one game came out ahead. And like it won it, not quite sweeping, but like it won it pretty hard. And the thing that caught my attention is the fact that it's an educational game aimed at 3 to 6 year olds. And I was thinking, why in God's name did that win like the overall best game of show? And
Frog
then
Fractions already came out.
Pardon?
That's not new. We've already played Frog Fractions.
But
we played Frog Fractions too.
Essentially, I've been dancing around the title, and there's a reason for that. And as soon as I heard the title, I was like, oh, that's why. And so again, it's an educational game aimed at children, and it's called Alpha Beat Cancer. And the entire game is on your phone. It's on your Android, your iOS, and it's just a very mechanics light game. And it's all about, it's aimed at children who might have cancer, who might have family who have cancer, and might have friends who have cancer. And it's kind of no BS, like this is what cancer is, this is what people go through when they go through chemotherapy, this is what happens, like it's the full gambit. It has you like it's really touching actually, but there's only one problem with it, and that's the fact that it's only in Portuguese. The developers are Brazilian. They're a completely non-profit, so like the game is not for sale, nothing in it is for sale. It's completely educational and informative. And yeah, like I had to play along with it with like Google Translate on the side, but I 100% recommend it. They're looking to get an English release going, but because they're a nonprofit, they're waiting for extra funding. But there's a really fantastic article that came out on VentureBeat about the game, and I think it's totally worth I recommend reading it. And yeah, like I think other games have tried to do the cancer thing, like That Dragon Cancer comes to mind, Relapse comes to mind. I didn't really like those games. Like, if I'm honest, I wrote a review for That Dragon Cancer and gave it 2 out of 5. And one of my main problems with it was the fact that, like they were actually trying to make a profit off of it, and like they were turning it into this really weird thing. And like, but I have nothing but respect for the creators of Alpha Beat Cancer, and I think it's totally worth recommending around and like reading about and trying if you can. So
Okay.
Excellent.
yeah,
Thank you.
Sounds fascinating.
there could be poop. I didn't get to the very end.
Don't know enough about chemotherapy to comment one way or the other.
Mm. Speaking of poop, Pat.
Oh my god!
Don't
Yeah,
tell it
God.
out, Pat. Don't tell it
Yeah.
out.
Sick burn. No,
Gotta
I
get
will
points.
say on That Dragon Cancer, I was not a particularly big fan of the game itself as well. But I will say there's a fascinating episode of Reply All that goes into the development of That Dragon Cancer. I highly recommend it to everyone. It's
Totally.
very good.
I think one thing I should note about That Dragon Cancer, I even said it in my review, is I think it's a story that's 100% worth experiencing. Because I think like it's extremely personal and it's really well told. I just think as a game, it's the wrong medium. Like if they did it as a documentary or like a children's cartoon or something like that, it would be amazing. But yeah,
I think when you learn more about the development of that game, there's it's really worth hearing about the story almost more than playing the game, I think.
Sure.
Just because there's some very beautiful and touching stuff that they go through in that episode of Reply All. And then also some things that in a sense that game seems, and I'm trying to choose my words very carefully because I don't want to seem disrespectful at all, because I think that couple went through hell and did it smiling for their child, and that's something I don't know that I could ever do. But some very personal parts of that game degree that it's very hard to relate to them if you're not those parents. Like,
yeah,
I don't mean about like in what it's like generally to go through that scenario, but specifically what it was like for them. Certain scenes in that game relate to specific moments in their story that are not conveyed through the game that they, I think, expected more people would pick up on, but it's very hard to do so if you don't know the story going in.
Yeah.
So, if anything, like listening to that Reply All episode made me appreciate aspects of the game more. But I think it's hard to. I think that game is just hard to review in the first place. But it's also hard to give it a pass for those things if you remove it from its context and look at it simply as a work.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's challenging to review, but I tend to agree that I wasn't a huge fan of the final product. I do think that that what they achieved was really important, though, at the same time.
Yeah, I agree.
It's an interesting thing. As far as what I've been playing, I can't remember if I talked about it at all last week, but I've continued to play through Fire Emblem and the Game Boy Advance, which that game is really good. I'm not going to go way into it because it's really old, but it's an awesome game, and I'm really glad I'm finally like clicking with that series because I want to like over the course of the next year or so, I'm looking forward to just sort of slowly working through that library. I think that the parallels to Advance Wars are things I didn't really appreciate back when I tried to play it closer to when it came out. But like it's Wars in a lot of ways, in my opinion. I think that it has a lot more character, and I can see why they kind of stuck with Fire Emblem going forward rather than doing them like they were doing for a while. So I'm about 20 chapters into that 30 chapter game. And then the other thing, I don't really have much to report on it, so I'll keep it very brief so we can go into our main topic. But I don't know how I missed this, but I'm a huge fan of Toys to Life stuff. I think the execution is almost always horrible. But like, I really want to believe. I bought into Skylanders when it first came out. I bought into Disney Infinity when it first came out. I've always wanted to like fall in love with one of those systems because I think it's magical, and I'm kind of ticked off and bitter that it didn't exist when I was a kid. So anyway, a friend of mine reminded me of a game called Light Seekers that was kickstarted a couple of years ago.
I'm not familiar.
It didn't really pick up, I don't think, at all in like gaming media because the game is on mobile. It's on iOS and phones, or iOS and Android devices, and it's like it. But I kind of like glossed over it. But there's a whole trading card game to it that is like separate from the game. So I picked some of the stuff up for today. The cards are actually like pretty cool. They look like physical simple Hearthstone cards, kind of. The rule system is deeper than I would have expected, and kind of the reason I jumped on it was because a friend of mine that I play card games with wanted to try out the cards. And then the figures, which I picked one of them up, are pretty awesome. So they look like this guy.
Oh, nifty.
Yeah, so they're fully posable and they're about 7 inches tall. It's very different from Skylanders. You basically, like, there's only 4 figures out right now, and then a handful of equipment that you can stick on them. But it's kind of more like, this is like your character that you're playing as in the game. And it Bluetooths with this nifty little like chip thing that you stick in their back, like on their back. Basically, like, you set all that up, and then based on what you equip them with, different parts of the figure glow at different times, and it kind of unlocks different things within the game. And then there's also there's parts where, like, if you have one of these flight packs, you can fly around with it in the game and use the character as a controller. But the thing that kind of put me over the edge on it is that it's not nearly the money sink that a Skylanders is, because it's kind of, the idea is like you get one of these characters and then play with that character for a long time. The game seems, I haven't put much time into it, but it seems to be kind of like a action RPG, sort of like Diablo light kind of, but actually fun. I read an article from, I think it was from like Forbes and from Kotaku, saying like this game is way better than any other Toys to Life game part has been before. And they've just like really slowly been adding free content to it, since there's not tons of figures to buy in, and then the game is pretty much open to you. There's no gating, there's no microtransactions or paywalls. It's just, and your toy looks cool and does stuff while you're playing, and you put different weapons on the toy, and then you have different weapons in the game. But it's just something for you to kind of play through at that point. There's not like, oh, well, you need this Skylander to go through this gate so you can get this piece of loot. It just doesn't do that. So I'll probably have more thoughts on it next week when I've had a little more time to put into the game part of it. But it seems pretty neat for that genre. And like maybe somebody actually cares about making a cool product. It was Kickstarted, so they're kind of a small company that they're making a fun product over like capturing billions of dollars in the toy market.
Nice.
You know,
That sounds really interesting.
you talking about being able to put like the chips on the back of them, it just makes me think we really need a Toys to Life Syndicate game where you can rip the chips out of the back of people's heads.
Well, you know, Nintendo is kind of, they're, we talked about the Direct last week, then they did their thing. I've got an exclusive Nintendo Labo right here.
Hey! Hey.
The newest Toys to Life product.
It totally is that.
Yeah, I was going to say, for those of you listening to the audio version, Andre just pulled a full cardboard piano.
From nowhere.
It's pretty amazing, actually.
Is that
Yeah,
full size grand piano in my
Yeah, it's very impressive. I'm surprised you guys hold it up.
In my studio
What's the name of that
apartment.
game, by the way, Pat? I missed the name.
It's called
And
Light Seekers.
I feel like I'm pretty much 100% going to buy that.
Yes. I won't keep talking about it at length, but it's called Light Seekers, and you can actually, the trading card part of it, you can buy those separate from the figures if you're just interested in playing the card game. If you do buy them and you use the app, you can also play the app for free without buying any of the figures. If you do buy cards, though, you can scan them into the app, and then it gives you different like bonuses and things in the game. As far as I understand it, none of that like gates your progress, but they do have an effect in the game. I don't believe there's a digital version of the trading card game built into it, but I imagine it launched about 6 months ago. So I imagine that as it ages, they will probably support it with that too.
There's a starter set here for £22.50. That's pretty good. Anyway, sorry, I'm just looking at the internet now. Pat, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about, or should we move swiftly on?
Just thinking if there's anything. Oh, I did. I dug out a piece of archaic technology called the PlayStation Vita, and got it running. And I have Danganronpa installed on it. I haven't really put any time into it yet, but I will be beginning that journey as well in the coming weeks.
Hell yeah.
You did some dark business. You could get Fire Emblem on there.
Yeah, I did do some dark business and purchase a cartridge, a Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon cartridge that I am almost positive will end up being fake, but we'll see. It was $12, so looked real in the pictures.
You know what's great on the PlayStation Vita? The PSP game Valkyria Chronicles 2.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to play that because I've never played the second one, and I like the first one quite a bit. So
it's so good,
I actually will.
and it's so criminally underlooked.
Yeah, I'm planning on getting into a few Vita games that I missed now that I have it dug out and a new charger for it and stuff.
Yeah. And if you like Fire Emblem,
Cool.
it stands to reason that you might really like Valkyria Chronicles.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I already know that I really like the first Valkyria Chronicles. I've just never gotten into any of the sequels.
Right.
And 2's got a lot of like social link stuff. They basically tried to make their spin on a Persona.
Awesome.
I played My Vita died. I'm the only person I know who's had a Vita that broke. But My Vita died when I was about 40 hours into that game. So never managed to pick it back up again.
Yep.
But would recommend from the 40 hours that I played of it. So before we get into our main and also our off topic, does anybody, Andre talked a little bit about Labo. I for one thought it'd be interesting just to talk for about a couple of minutes. I think it's awesome. What's everyone's thoughts?
I've contributed all I have to say on the matter.
I think it looks really good, and I think that there's a lot of people. Oh, I think there's a lot of people that aren't super excited about it, but they're the ones that aren't necessarily parents. Whereas I know a lot of parents who are looking at this going like, yes, please give it to me right now. Because it is really aimed for kids. And I say that, but I am definitely going to get that variety pack at launch because this definitely feels like something I would have adored when I was a kid and would be kind of fun to play around with as an adult.
Yeah. Originally, I wasn't too hot on it. I was like, that seems okay. But then when it came out that they only really charge you for the cart, and then like all of the designs are just freely available, I thought that was actually pretty cool.
I will be interested to see how much like custom stuff you can do with it. I've heard people saying that they assume that there's going to be a lot of like custom programming that's possible. Man. I didn't get that impression from the trailer, but if there is, that could be even better.
Yeah, if you could basically turn that into like an Arduino for kids, that would be amazing.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, my wife to be was watching the trailer with me, and she said like at the end of it, she was like, "That's so cool!" Like she literally like my jaw was open the entire 2.5 minutes because like she works with kids, you know, she was like, I see every single possibility here of how good this is, and how impressive it is. So luckily, that means I don't need to buy it because she's going to buy a copy. But actually, I'm looking forward to giving it a play as well.
That reminds me. I don't remember if it was actually related to this, but Korg recently, makers of synthesizers and a bunch of pedals and stuff like that, recently came out and said they're doing a bunch of Nintendo Switch stuff. And I think so, like where they had like the piano and stuff, like that was pretty light, but you actually might be able to do like kind of like modular synthesis, like kind of stuff on the Switch, and that is profoundly exciting.
So people are going to be going to EDM shows and like plugging their Switch into like their synthesizer and
hell yeah,
people waving around their Joy-Cons like.
I've been to a gig where somebody was playing an original Game Boy, so
you too.
You know, Nintendo's already in there. But yeah, so I mentioned a couple of times that our main topic today is actually off topic. So whilst primarily we're going to be talking about video games on this show, when there's not much video games to talk about, we've kind of come to the conclusion that we're going to talk about something else. So I was lucky enough to get my idea in first for this week, and nobody disagreed with me. So this week we are doing a group read and review of the Marvel Comics series The Vision by Tom King and Gabriel Hernandez Walter that came out in 2015. It's available incredibly reasonably online if you want to buy a soft copy. We'll find out in a minute whether everyone else would recommend you do that. I certainly would. And what I thought would be best is if we could talk non-spoilery about it, and then for those who might be interested, and then we'll do a hard cut and we'll go full spoilers from there on out. So, and what I'll do is Erica sent in her thoughts. I'll read those out at the end of the non-spoiler section. To kind of end of, beginning of the next section. So I don't want to talk too much here.
Just to start, you can find the comic Vision Volume 1, Little Worse Than a Man on Comixology for $7 or $6.99. Nice.
Oh, God.
And
we forgot to mention that Labo comes out on $4.20 and costs $69.
Yeah,
Well
can't
done,
believe that.
Disney. Oh,
Genius.
not Disney, Nintendo. Well done, Nintendo.
it'll be Disney someday.
Someday.
And Volume 2 is also $6.99 on Comixology.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think the first thing we should do is just all give a overview opinion of what we thought of it. So I'll go in order in the people in the order I see them, left to right. So I'm going to start with Alex.
Sure. So for me, I don't follow comics too closely. I read, let's say, one series every 5 years, more or less. So this is that one. And it really reminded me of my first time reading through the graphic novel of Watchmen, just in terms of content matter that they're talking about, and in terms of tone, and just the writing, the level of writing and everything like that. So I take that as pretty high praise, because of all the graphic novels and comics I've read, Watchmen is probably among my top. Probably is my top, actually. So my feelings on Vision are almost wholly positive. I don't really have any criticisms that come to mind. I think it's a quick read just because it's so good. So yeah, that's all I've got for it for the moment without being spoilery.
And Alison, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'd probably read a few more comics than Alex, but not by very much. Like I read, I'm a big Hawkeye fan, for instance. Matt Fraction's run on Hawkeye is my favorite comic by far. But then I also read the occasional other Marvel comic. But I tend to read mostly kind of the lighter-hearted, like the current Miss Marvel. I like Squirrel Girl. So going from that to this was kind of a surprise. I really enjoyed it, though. The thing that I thought was just so interesting, not in a spoilery way, was that this was, from what I understand, announced pretty much right after or right before Avengers Age of Ultron came out. So it was kind of like, look, you're going to like Vision after seeing Age of Ultron, right? You're going to want to read this comic. So then you read it and you go, this is not, I can't even imagine what it would feel like if you had just gone straight from liking Vision in Age of Ultron to reading this comic. I feel like it doesn't feel like a kind of comic that they'd make just to get for the movie only fans to read. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. And like Alex said, I was once I started reading it, I was pretty hooked and needed to finish it almost immediately.
Andre, what did you think?
I enjoyed it. I go through like fits and starts with comic books. I will like get real hot and heavy for a little bit and then like fall off, like because I no longer have a Android tablet or like an iOS tablet. So reading stuff on like Marvel Unlimited is a pain in the ass because their desktop PC stuff, Windows stuff is awful and just basically worthless. So that's where I'm at with comics. Kelly Sue DeConnick's Captain Marvel from like 2012 is my favorite series So yeah, Vision. It's I enjoyed it, but it was, I don't know, maybe after playing, like seeing some other stuff that like dealt with same kind of subject matter, like maybe Near Automata and stuff like that, where they're not exactly the same or telling the same story. They deal with similar themes, and so it was like it hit a little less heavy for me. Like there's still some very like heavy stuff in there, and makes you question a lot of things, but it wasn't as much of a what are people as maybe it might have been had I not played some other stuff, or like that stuff hadn't been coming up in media recently. And like this is kind of like, before Near Automata and stuff came out in 2015, but just like from when I consumed the stuff.
No, definitely. And Pat, about yourself?
Yeah, so I guess for my comic reading past, I've never really been a big superhero comic guy. My favorite superhero is Spider-Man. I used to read Ultimate Spider-Man pretty religiously when I was a kid. But other than that, I read the occasional like Batman series because I like Batman a lot too, or I've read through all of the Civil War comics when that was happening in Marvel, but I haven't really followed comics in a long time. I do like a lot of non-superhero comics, so like and I get to them way after the fact. Last year I read North 40, which I really liked a lot. That's an indie book that's kind of a sort of Lovecraftian with weird eldritch superheroes in it. I've read obviously I've read stuff like Sandman and things like that. So a lot of stuff that's like superhero adjacent but not superhero comics. That's kind of the stuff I get into. I'm reading through the Monstrous series right now. That's really beautiful, dark, like monsters and stuff. But as far as Vision is concerned, it's interesting that you brought up just like seeing Vision in Age of Ultron and then going to read this, because while I haven't watched Age of Ultron since it was in theaters, that was kind of my primary exposure to Vision prior to reading this. So it's kind of over time more, but it was interesting to come in with that perspective and have that just totally like torn away. And I kind of thought that would happen based on the little that I knew about the premise for this series. And I would say that I really, really enjoyed a lot of the themes in it, and I especially enjoyed a lot of the writing. I had a similar reaction as to Andre's, in that it didn't. I felt like a lot of the what is humanity themes that it tried to investigate didn't hit as hard as in other pieces of media for me. And I think it actually was kind of helpful, because I kind of got maybe why Nier didn't hit as hard with some people, because I think it's just a personal taste thing, where the way that it was done in Nier and the way that it was done in Blade Runner 2049 and the original Blade Runner, those are like, to me, like the best takes on that concept for me personally. And I can totally see why this book would be the best take on it for somebody else personally, because I think it is handled very well. It didn't resonate with me in the same way that Nier or Blade Runner did, and I'm only using those mainly as examples because they just came out this past year, the most recent media of that nature that I consumed. However, what did hit really hard with me is I really enjoyed the subversiveness of this series. I really enjoyed how family dynamic was explored. I don't know that I agree with some of the conclusions that I felt like I was drawing from their examination of family dynamics. However, I think that's a subjective thing, and I think that it was a very interesting take, and I appreciated it a lot, even if I didn't personally agree with the ethos behind it in every case. And then the writing it's very, very well written. I did feel a couple of times like it wanted me to know that it was smarter than me, and that was a little bit like and I don't know that it necessarily was. I think it's very smart, but sometimes I felt like some of the writing was like trying to be a little too smart. But I also think that might be a product of when it came out, because I don't know the history of this writer particularly well. I have not read his other work, but it seemed like maybe there was an attempt to differentiate it from what was happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at the time. So I kind of can understand the desire to use like more, wordy's the wrong word. I hate that term. It's to try to use more like intelligent writing techniques than maybe is typical in some of the other dialogue. And then it also fits with the character too. So
Sure.
I don't think that's a major criticism.
Maybe a bit didactic or verbose.
Yeah, yes, that's the right way to put it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'd say is the art didn't super jive with me, but I think it's very well done. So I think that's a taste thing. It's not.
Yeah. Going off the being very like it thinks it thinks it's smarter than you or whatever. I think in retrospect, that kind of makes me. I think it made me like Nier more. Like reading this made me like Nier more because I was like kind of lukewarm on Nier. So this made me like it more, and I think it's because it doesn't try to be like, oh, I'm smarter than you. It's just like, here's the story. Take from it what you will.
Yep.
But also following up on that, and not on the same subject, the subversive thing I think is also really interesting.
Yes.
I don't know if we have. Are any of you guys?
I don't keep up with this.
Yeah, I was in the mid-teens, but oh no!
Whoops. Pause. Fix that.
So, Spider-Man, is that a good character?
What's that?
The humanness.
Right. Yeah, no, we were talking earlier on in the podcast about how I have seen the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie about 700 times.
Okay. It's a good movie.
I really dislike that movie now, having seen other Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, same. I would say the same thing.
I loved it at the time.
At the time, it was a very good movie. That's what I should have said. At the time.
Yeah, I still think it's good. I just
director.
Yeah, I think it's good, but now I see what we could have had.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the subject at hand.
Yeah, sorry.
Alex, you were talking about anime.
Sorry about that. The audio for the stream and podcast just got super fucked for about 20 seconds. Don't know what happened.
Though?
It's all good now.
Okay.
Yeah, I was asking if we have any anime fans in the house.
I've watched an anime or two.
I've seen an anime or two. I'm not opposed, but I do not keep up.
Okay.
Yeah, I was up through like the mid-2000s when I was a teenager, but not so much anymore.
Have any of you guys ever seen, I'm going to use two series, there's a lot of them, but have you seen Neon Genesis Evangelion or Madoka Magica?
I love Evangelion.
I've seen Evangelion.
I've seen like the first Evangelion movie, maybe the second. I was drunk.
And my point about those is that seems like a great way to watch those movies, but they're total deconstructions, right? Like they're taking a framework that you're totally familiar with. In the case of Evangelion, it's mecha. And then in the case of Madoka Magica, it's like the Sailor Moon style, like magical girls. And then it takes everything you expect and then it kind of flips it on its head. It's like, it's just messing with it in ways that you wouldn't expect and subverting your expectations, like you said. And I think for me, I don't have the context of comics enough to know just how deep that subversion went and that deconstruction went. So I think if I were a huge comic fan, I could see that hitting super hard. But so like the same way I think if you're watching Neon Genesis Evangelion the first time without knowing anything about mecha, you might just be like, this is a really weird thing.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe I'm putting words in Pat's mouth, but I don't think like as a comic it's necessarily that subversive, but as like as a follow-up to like Age of Ultron, where maybe a lot of people like, oh, Vision's cool, I want to go read Vision. I don't know how many people actually like who aren't reading comics see the movies and go, oh, I want to go read the comics about this guy.
Mm-hmm.
There's like as like a counterpoint to the movies, it's kind of subversive to like get people in there to read it.
Sure, I can see that.
I think it's also subversive to the concept of an Avenger. That was the thing that to me, like, and it's actually not that uncommon in the, and you would know more than me, Sam, but it's not that uncommon in the way that they treat the Avengers in their specific books for them to subvert what your expectations of their characters are. I just thought it was interesting in a bubble, having the mass appeal, like these are the movies, the Avengers are good guys, they're just good guys, deal with it, they're good guys, anything they do is right. And they haven't really played with that much. They kind of poke it trying to play with it with like, oh well, Captain America is being hunted by the US government now, but whatever, he's in the right. Those movies are so heavy-handed, and they're not bad, but they're very, very like, these are the good guys and they fight the bad guys. There's not a lot of subversion in the MCU movies. So as someone who's consumed superhero media like that since I was like, for the past 10 years ago or so, since I stopped reading comic books or superhero comics, this was an interesting subversion of that archetype, even if that's not that uncommon for them to do it in the actual books when you read them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that at least from what I've read, they definitely do that. Like, that's a big part of why I like Matt Fraction's run of Hawkeye, is that it's very much subverting, like, he's in the Avengers, but also he's really concerning himself with this apartment building. He's kind of a mess. And, but at the same time, you never really reading those doubt in Clinton Kate, really. You just think you still root for them largely, whereas this was like, I just don't know how to feel about Vision as a character throughout, which feels very unique, at least to the few superhero comics that I've read.
And I really like that aspect of it a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like it's also just subversive in general of, like, one of the biggest things that it aims to do is subvert that kind of standard nuclear family dynamic, which he's very much wants, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense for him, or even if it doesn't necessarily, not even necessarily a good dynamic. And even if there's cracks underneath the surface, like, which is the part that I personally found the most interesting. Like, I still haven't finished or played that much of Nier Automata, so I can't really speak to that aspect, but
it's not present in that game, I don't think.
Right. No, but I mean, like, I so I did really like the what does it mean to be human, but also the thing that kind of connected with me most was like, what does it mean to be human in current modern day society, which is something that I always find really interesting, even if it's heavy-handed and I'm not saying this is heavy-handed, but in something like a Black Mirror, where even if it's like at its most heavy-handed in Black Mirror, I still enjoy it.
We should do a podcast about Black Mirror.
Oh, we should.
Yeah. And how I hate it.
No, I love it.
So I'll give you a little bit of background on kind of what I thought of it, and then maybe a little tiny bit of background about the comic itself and like the writer, and a mini synopsis. I'll read Erica's comments, and then we can go into some heavier spoilers. So, background on comics is that comics were kind of my first love in terms of like things that I'm a big fan of. So, I think my earliest memory is of renting Superman the movie on VHS from the local video rental store, I watched that religiously as well as I was a kid, and I've always been a huge superhero fan. And then when I got my first comic, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" And I've kind of expanded from superhero comics into independent stuff and all that sort of thing. So I read extremely, extremely seriously for the majority of my 20s, I'd say. At one point, I think I was buying about 40 comics a month. I had to cut that for cost reasons. But But then Marvel Unlimited came out, and I was reading, and again, I was reading like 40, 50 comics a month because I was reading everything Marvel put out. And that was where I found the Vision, actually. So I came to the Vision mostly for the writer. So Tom King, he wrote a book that I was recommended extremely drunkenly by a friend in the pub. He wrote this comic called The Omega Men, which is basically an exploration of religious terrorism, but from the viewpoint of the terrorists. And it's all set in space. Basically, the first issue opened with them murdering a Green Lantern and going on from there. It's a really cool comic. I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants to read something a little bit weird and philosophical. That was the first ever mainstream comic that Tom King wrote. Was this very weird philosophical sci-fi book. And then the first ever Marvel book he wrote was Vision. He currently writes 2 books for DC, so he writes the main Batman book now. So if you enjoy that writer and you like Batman, I'd highly recommend that. I think we talked a little while ago about a double date issue where Superman and Lois Lane and Catwoman and Batman go on a double date to a fair. He wrote that issue. It's weirdly, it's almost a complete counterpoint to the Vision in that it's very funny. So it's kind of cool to know that he does a couple of different things. Tom King, the writer, into his background, I don't know whether any of you guys did a little bit of reading or anything or saw any of the stuff, but Tom King is an ex-CIA operative. So he used to live in Washington where the Vision is set. He raised kids in the Washington suburbs, and also previously has been embedded in Iraq and Afghanistan as a kind of operative for the CIA, which is super interesting career path from what I think is code for spy to DC Comics writer. So I really like the Vision. I'll save probably more thoughts for when we get to the spoilery section. But I think the thing that hit with me most is the subversion of the family dynamic, like Alison was saying. The kind of what is a human stuff. I feel like we're seeing it everywhere in today's media. And whilst the Vision was one of the first places I saw it, as I read it issue to issue when it was coming out, I think that the family dynamic stuff was probably the best. And also, I have to say, anti to Pat, I loved the artwork. I really like just off realistic artwork. And I feel like Gabriel Hernandez Walter really hit it there. I should probably get to Erica's comments before we stray too far. So here we go. I'm going to read these out roughly. So from Erica, as someone that has been previously a big fan of comics but has fallen off in recent years, the Vision made me excited about comic book storytelling in a way I didn't think I'd feel again. This is particularly due to it being a nice, neat, contained story. 12 issues isn't a gigantic commitment, but it's enough time to build an engaging story and make the reader care about the characters. The use of shadows in the art, particularly on Virginia's face around the blackmail subplot, which we'll get to in a minute, was really well done and not something I think I would have picked up on until I read about it in letters to the author. Once I noticed it, I thought it was great. Her face was well lit when Vision told her he believed Viv would make a full recovery, and then she received a phone with the video of her burying Grim Reaper, and her face was in shadow. Alex, it might be wise to edit a spoiler warning in before I read Erica's comments. I don't know how easy that is.
If you're listening to the podcast version, the outro music will be entered here. Feel free to keep on listening if you want to hear the spoiler version.
That makes sense.
Bye, guys who don't want the spoilers.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye. We do still love you.
Just not as much.
Yeah.
Go read the Vision. Go read the Vision, then unpause.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
So this happened again when she was watching her family play football in the yard, and she answered the cell phone pretty much every time she interacted with the blackmailer. This book goes out of its way to remind you that visions, despite their best efforts, are not human. However, I found myself feeling very human feelings for them: empathy, dread, pity, and sorrow. It's a really good book, and I will read more books by Tom King and more books Sam recommends. Excellent. I'm pleased with that ending.
Spoilers.
Yeah, so spoilers. The plot of the Vision is essentially that the Vision creates his own family. He builds his wife from the brainwaves of his ex-wife, the Scarlet Witch, and combines their brainwaves to make their 2 children. And they move into a suburb in Washington whilst the Vision goes to work for the president. And so they have a lovely, happy little nuclear family, which doesn't stay happy for long. The Grim Reaper attacks them, and his wife, Virginia, is forced to murder him to save their children. And she hides this from the Vision because she worries that he won't be able to lie about it if he's questioned or what have you. And kind of things spiral from there. The book has a lot of foreshadowing. I think I'm particularly susceptible. I love foreshadowing in stories, and I feel I really like the way that Tom King does it in this book, particularly because every time he introduces a character, he usually tells you how they're going to die.
Yep.
Does that even count as foreshadowing? Because he just tells you what's going to happen, like spoilers.
Probably not, but yeah.
I actually found that foreshadowing to be a very important to the emotional tone of the book, because I think I have a thing that if we continue to talk about like more, because you don't see it as much in games, if we continue to talk about more like television and literature, I have an issue with stories and literature that I think is supposed to be mean. That's actually part of why, and I don't mean this, to be clear, I don't mean this as objective stuff. This is all subjective opinion. So I don't want to I'm not trying to trash anybody's opinions at all here, but like that's part of why I really don't like Black Mirror, because I think that it's aggressively, it's making an aggressive attempt to make you feel like shit. And I personally don't really like that in my media. I think that for a lot of people, they don't perceive it in that way, and that's great, because I hope that like people should be able to enjoy things. I wish I could like a lot of this stuff, but a lot of like current prestige television has that effect on me where I feel like it's super mean, and it's like I'm supposed to like feel bad while I consume it, and I really don't like that. And so I really appreciate it. I was kind of worried that that's how this Vision series was going to go. Like it was just going to be like a heartache simulator where I was just going to have to like feel a bunch of pain for these characters after they were built up, and then like just like kind of nastily gotten rid of. But that foreshadowing, I think, almost exists as a way to say, at the end of the story, there won't be anyone left. And like, you can turn back now if you don't, but like, just know that everyone's gone. Like, this is not going to end well. And that made me go, okay, so now I'm going to look at this from a more clinical perspective, and just because I want to see how it plays out, rather than get emotionally attached to all these characters. And I wasn't totally successful in that, because I did Viv in particular, I really kind of fell in love with that character over the course of reading it. Coincidentally, she's the one that makes it out at the end, so I guess that's kind of like, yeah. But I like that foreshadowing a lot. I think without it, it would have felt like a nastier story, which would have been fine for plenty of people, but just doesn't work for me. So I'm glad that it was so direct in its spoilers.
Yeah, I think it was pretty direct, and then also it was kind of like, make no mistake, this is going to be a tragedy. Like, when you meet the neighbors, like almost immediately, it's like their house will be on fire by one of the visions at the end of this book, which happens. But it's one of those things where I feel like one of the other things I really liked about the book was I felt that the pacing was really good. Just like that kind of slow descent into more and more tragedy, where it starts off like, okay, they get attacked by a villain, but that's not terribly, like, it was a lot more gruesome than we're normally used to seeing in a lot of comic books, but that's not, you know, out of the realm of possibility for a superhero comic. But then just like the slow descent to like blackmail, and then when Virginia goes over to the blackmailer's home, whose name I'm blanking on, and his son is shot. Like, just like that kind of descent from things being on the surface fine, although we know it's not fine, to being full-blown tragedy, I thought worked really well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Things go bad very quickly.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of the more subtle stuff as well. So they make mention later on that, like, I was talking about this when we were talking about it in the chat, that the tree, they had this big Wundagore blossom tree, which forms one of the central plot points, is in the front room, and it's in like a huge amount of scenes. And then you find out later in the comic that it's a gift for his previous wedding to his ex-wife, who you know, she's mentally unstable at best, the Scarlet Witch, and you see, and her brainwaves are what they base Virginia on, and there's a couple of sections. Tom King does a lot of good stuff with repetition. He repeats the opening line of the comic 3 separate times. Basically the opening line is like, the Vision's moved into so and so on so and so house on this avenue on a nice summer day, and it talks a bit about the area and like, oh, the people who live there wish they went into the city more often and blah blah blah. And then when there's a section where a character is seeing the future and she speaks the whole intro, kind of almost fourth wall breaking-y, and then also it's the last text panel in the comic is the repetition of that first intro, which I thought was really well handled. And I like you were saying about the neighbors. I think the neighbors is probably my favorite piece of foreshadowing, because the narrator says, George and Nora, within a couple of months, their house is burned down by one of the Visions. George's last thought will be of Nora and how he has lived a perfect life, and Nora's last thought is of the floating vase and why it was empty. And then they kind of explain why it's empty, and that in order to make it float, it has to be poisonous, so they can never put flowers in it.
Yep.
And I think obviously that's a pretty heavy-handed metaphor, but I really liked it.
Yeah, it's heavy-handed, but I feel like that's the one that stuck with me the most. Like, it's one of those things where you immediately see it, like, oh yeah, it's this facsimile of a vase, but it's clear it can't have the same purpose. But at the same time, I felt like that was the type of thing where last night when I was going to sleep, I kind of kept thinking about a lot of this comic, but then I thought about that vase, and I feel like it's a little heavy-handed, but I think it works really well.
I mean, it's in every issue. That vase is in every issue, and it's mentioned quite a few times. And then it's the method Virginia uses to kill herself. Mega spoilers. The end of the final issue.
Man, I thought we weren't going to spoil. Damn it.
I think it's really cool that she basically spends the whole of however many months in that house with the thing that she uses to kill herself, which I think they mentioned that as also a wedding gift, possibly, for the Vision's ex-wife. And they do a great bit where they mention that Virginia, when she thinks about her memories.
Yes, that's
she
one of my
often
favorite
finds
moments in the entire book. Yeah.
And then they repeat that again.
That was one of the moments that so I just went on, just talked about like not liking things that are, I do also like feeling things a lot from media. That was the most earned moment of sadness from a comic book I think I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
When they go back into it.
That made me very emotional, and in a way that I don't know. I thought that was it deserved to have that. It didn't feel mean. It didn't feel contrived. It felt like it earned it, and I was really, really blown away by that panel.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that the heavy-handedness is actually pretty earned across the board, I think, in this book. I think there are particular moments where it's intentionally heavy-handed. Yeah. And I think that it does that well. And it doesn't feel like it's cheap or contrived. It feels very like, we're going to beat you over the head with this because we make a lot of points and have a lot of opinions in this book. And this is one of the ones that you should pay attention to more than the other ones. And so I didn't feel like it was cheap when they did that.
No, and I sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I would agree with you in that. I feel like those moments were really earned, especially with that repetition of Virginia going through her memories. That was one where I was just like, that got to me for sure.
I think it's interesting that the memories are implanted, but you don't know kind of where from at the beginning.
Yeah, until later. Yep.
Yeah, and she goes, and then when you realize why they're so sad, and it kind of gives you a load of context for why Virginia does what she does.
And it gives you so much context for so many scenes that have happened already, like when they're laying in bed and he tells her the joke.
Yeah.
Before. Oof. And it's just, man, like it's really good.
One of my favorite subtle things was that at the beginning of the book, Virginia and Vision sleep in separate single beds.
Yeah.
And they never draw attention to it, but they start sleeping in a double bed, which I thought was cool. And they stop wearing pajamas. Like their relationship kind of grows and changes off panel. There's only there's the scene where she's like, I want to get down, but that's really the only evolution of their relationship on panel, which is really cool, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything to add besides that. The Redskins stuff was weird on like the football and like the mascot.
I kind of agreed. I thought that was a little
like, yeah, it was it was a little cheesy. Like I laughed at it because like, but
I think that was very politically relevant in 2015.
Oh yeah, it was just like what is this? And he holds up the football and there's fighting Redskins and there's a Native American headdress and stuff and the Visions have red skin. So it's like this is offensive to us. And it's like, like yes, but no.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a weird stretch, I thought. I also thought that like they were trying to draw a parallel, like the parallel that you're saying, but then also I thought that Vision was trying to like his children that it's racist too. But like I don't know. It was hard to read that part, I think. Like hard to understand exactly what the point was, I felt.
And then it's all to bring up like, oh no, he's like, your mascot's like a bull on a 3-corner hat, and they're like, oh no, it changed, but they haven't finished changing everything, and bring up that humans change, but they don't change.
Yeah,
quickly.
Yeah, and that it's a war is changed or war never changes. Which one is
that?
It
Was one of those things that kind of like it didn't quite hit with me. I thought that it was a little like, all right, I get it. Humanity's the real villain. What if I told you the real enemy was humanity? Like, come on.
It's not even like the real enemy. It's just
no. I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. What is
it's along those lines of like, that is one of the few instances of heavy-handedness that I didn't super appreciate, I guess.
Yeah. And you know who had to go through? Sorry, I was just gonna say, you know who had to go through the most tragedy in that whole comic? The poor dog.
Yeah.
Sparky.
Rough. Yeah.
That was rough.
Yeah.
It was hard.
That was
I kind of
gross.
Kind of saw it coming that something bad would happen to the dog, because you don't introduce a dog that late in the story without something bad happening to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it got.
Well, the dog survives the book, kind of.
Yeah, you're right.
Kind of. Yeah.
That's a different dog.
I mean, it also exists as a piece of normalcy for the family. I think like that's what it's supposed to represent.
Yeah.
So its destruction kind of had to happen, as a metaphor.
Yeah. Well, especially since they did get it so late in the game, like it felt very much like we are going to grasp onto this normalcy as much as we humanly can, even if there is nothing, even if it's using the brainwaves of this dead dog of the neighbors. Like I feel that's the thing that I thought was the most effective, was just like, we are going to be normal. We're going to go to a restaurant and pay even though we don't eat. We're going to have a dog, even though we're like using the neighbor's dog's brainwaves. It just felt like just that kind of aggressive, like we are going to be the most normal family. That I thought was so good.
Yeah. Vision says, he says to Scarlet Witch at the end, she's like, "Oh, this is what average people would do. We're special. We're not like them." And he's like, "If you knew me at all, you'd know that all I've ever wanted to be is average." And it's a fantastically powerful line.
So, Sam, you could probably explain this better. I wasn't super clear on it because I'm not clear enough on the Vision as a character outside of this book. Was he killing them? Like, is Scarlet Witch dead after that?
No.
Okay.
I think he can like phase through people and knock them out by like tapping their hearts or like.
That's kind of what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I had that moment where I was like, I don't remember hearing. I feel like that would have made the news of people going, "Hey, in this Vision comic, all of the superheroes are dead now," and I'm like, I feel like I would have heard that somewhere.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was supposed to like be pulled out of time or if they were just getting knocked out or what.
One of the reasons I picked the Vision over a couple of other things that I like as well is that I thought that it was probably the most self-contained. Because there's really only one thing that you wouldn't be able to glean or like get straight away, and it's why is Captain America black? Because everything else is explained in the comic itself. And you might also think, why are there two Spider-Men? But probably most people wouldn't have spotted that or thought too deeply about it.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice, and I know why there are two Spider-Men. But
That's four now.
Yeah. What? Jesus. So anyway, so the Grim Reaper stuff, and like Wonder Man, because Wonder Man, like, Ultron used Wonder Man's brainwaves to make
Vision.
Okay, but Wonder Man didn't die from that?
No, he just scanned his brain.
Okay. Yeah. So, because when I didn't know that stuff until this comic, and so when the Grim Reaper showed up, I was like, oh, Ultron like killed Wonder Man, took his brain, and that's why the Grim Reaper is mad. Grim Reaper is Wonder Man's brother. He is like wants revenge for using his brother's brain to make the Vision, I guess. But yeah, so it's like a very family motivated assault attack on the Visions, and which leads to all this family trauma. I can't remember where I was originally going to go with this, but like a family rooted like cause of their family trauma when they all started out. It was like a very human, like my family has been wronged. I want things to be right for my family, or I want misguided revenge or whatever. And
like
and then that's what the Vision, his so the daughter is like damaged very badly, so the mother gets revenge for killing Grim Reaper, and then the Vision's brother / the kid's uncle, of Ultron relatedness, ends up killing Vin, and so Vision wants revenge for that. So there's a whole like family squabble stuff. Kind of squabble is kind of maybe a light word for it, but
basically every agenda or like every attack or action sequence is family related.
Yeah.
So like the Grim Reaper is like, you know, you've stolen my brother's brainwaves. Then I think the next fight sequence is in the blackmailer's house.
Yep, the Krasinski or whatever.
Yeah, and like he's scared for his son because Vin attacks him at school. And then after that, it's Victor and Vin, and it's like, oh, I'm spying on you. Don't tell your parents, that sort of thing. I think Victor's death is actually quite well earned as well. Like he's not a major character. I barely knew who he was, and I read a lot of comics. But I thought the way he went out was very good, and like he's like, yes, I'm dying, but I'm happy because I was meant to destroy the world and I didn't.
No fate but what we make.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think every death in that comic is really well earned.
I agree. Yeah.
Not many 12-issue storylines only have 4 fights, and in every fight, in every fight somebody dies.
Yeah.
Especially a mainstream comic killing off 2 semi-known named characters that weren't created for that series. Yeah, no, I you know, the more I think about it, the more I like the Vision, I have to say. I did not like the character beforehand. I thought he was quite poorly used in pretty much every Marvel comic he's been in. He's just been the like, I don't understand humans guy.
But he saved the world 37 times.
Yeah.
Oh, that sequence is so good.
Yeah. I like the repetition as well. I mean, I said it before, but anytime I really like, there's 2 repetitions that really stand out to me. And it's the Scarlet Witch one, where throughout the whole Scarlet Witch comic, the backstory of their relationship, he says, oh, did you not hear me? Would you like me to adjust the volume of my voice?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable at this volume, but I could go louder for you. And she does it to him right at the end. She says, you know, are you comfortable with the volume of my voice? And it's a really good callback, and it shows their relationship. But then also you get something that happens completely separate, which is where the Vision's being interviewed by the cops, and they say, oh, can anyone confirm your whereabouts? And he says, yes, I can confirm it. And then right at the end, when Virginia's giving her confession that she's killed the Grim Reaper, etc., the detective goes, okay, can anyone confirm your story? And she says, yes, I can confirm it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, like, it's a fantastic, it shows how much they've grown together in a scene that is not observed by either of the other. They know, they use the same language.
Mm-hmm.
Another really good comparison thing, we were talking about Wonder Man and Scarlet Witch. Like in the Scarlet Witch issue, they show that she's now seeing Wonder Man, and that's the impetus for her giving her brainwaves to Vision, saying, look, you and me didn't work out, but me and a version of you did work out. How about see if you and a version of me will work out? And like the real versions of these people are like happily in love, but Vision and Virginia sleep in separate beds. I think it's such a good juxtaposition between like artificial love and real love, I guess, is what they're trying to do there. Yeah. I could talk about the Vision for a while, I expect.
So I wanted to touch, though, I actually have to head out in a couple minutes here, but the last thing, the other major moment, I don't know what so it's the revelation that her memories are Scarlet Witches, and that's why she has a lot of things to cry about. But then also, once everything, like, there's a moment where the Vision realizes everything that's happened, like the death of the Grim Reaper, and we don't get to see the results of that conversation until like time has passed and the house is a disaster and he's in the basement like making this new dog, Like that sequence from like him going, oh, and then going in the basement, them showing him making a new dog, and then like Sparky shows up. But at this point, like we don't know what the results of that were between the two of them, really.
Mhm.
Other than that, they seem okay now, and the house is completely destroyed. And I thought that was like a really awesome gap to leave you to fill in, and was like very like that was one of those subversive moments where like seeing him in an apron with blood on his like apron, going like, I'm a superhero, and now I'm in this really fucked up situation, and I don't know what to do about it because I love my wife, I think, or not, but also we're on this train and we're gonna just keep going. And that was really, really, really interesting to see. And that was, I think I get really sick of like the last time that I cared about a superhero's home life was in The Incredibles, because I feel like The Incredibles did that like well when that was kind of still a new consideration for people who weren't reading comics all the time. It's like, what happens when a superhero goes home from work? And since then, it just seems like there's been a flood of media that's like the real lives of superheroes, and it doesn't really have an effect on me anymore. So that aspect of this book, like I was kind of expecting it to not have an effect on me, because it's like, okay, another story about how these characters go home and they live in a suburban neighborhood, and there's a joke about how the Avengers don't pay salaries anymore. But like that's been kind of touched on a lot in the past 15 years of comics and movies and stuff. So, but for some reason, that moment of his kind of total unhingement of like him making the decision, I am going to choose my family over the fact that I'm an Avenger, did like definitely hit home, and kind of, again, it was one of those like, this series earned the right to talk about the home life of a superhero in a way that I haven't seen anything that has since that became a common trope.
Yeah. Agreed.
And there's the part where he's out right before Vivian, or Virginia goes to meet with Blackmailer, and Vision is out with the Avengers, and she's like, "No, you need to come home. I've got this plan." Like blah blah blah. And he's like, "Fine, I'll call Nova and see if he's supposed to be spending time with his mom, but we have to make sacrifices." So he has to like. Yeah, he's got to honestly pull the human away from their family to go spend time with his family. And
honestly, that was kind of one of the parts that I sort of initially eye rolled at, as like, okay, of course this conversation needs to happen at some point. But because of the way that it was resolved, I felt like it retroactively earned a lot of those moments that happened earlier, and made me feel better about them in retrospect.
So, as Pat needs to go, and also I probably should go as well. Is there anyone got any wrapping up thoughts, or anything they want to speak on before we close down for the day?
Not really. I'm just, thanks for recommending it. I didn't
definitely
know that it existed, and I really enjoyed it a lot. So I appreciate you bringing it up for the podcast.
Thanks. I'm glad you guys liked it. I had undenied of things to recommend, but I kept going back and thinking, oh, what's the best thing? What's the best thing? I think the Vision's the thing that came up the most. For fans of the Vision or for people who have read the Vision or are interested in reading more Tom King work, I would really recommend the Omega Men. I think it's a really cool book. It's exactly the same format, 12 issues, one full story. But that one's actually available in one single paperback. So I think that's $6.99 for the whole thing, which is pretty cool. Tom King also writes Batman, as I said, has been writing it for about 40 issues now. So that's a bit different, obviously. But he's doing some really cool things over there. He's kind of changing the status quo up. And another Tom King recommendation is Mr. Miracle. Tom King's Mr. Miracle is a lot more like Vision, but I would say it thinks it's a lot smarter than the Vision thinks it is.
That's worrisome.
Yeah, it might not be for some people. It's really well done, though. They use a 9-panel grid, which is the same art method they use for Watchmen. And I'm a huge sucker for 9-panel grid, so I instantly fell in love with that book. It's not done yet. It's on about issue 6, but that is the exact same prestige 12-issue format.
Cool.
I struggle to recommend other good things. I think, as Alison was saying, Matt Fraction's Hawkeye is fantastic. That one, I think, is probably about 30 issues in the end. And Fraction also wrote Iron Fist and Iron Man, and both of those comics were very good. And I would also heartily and very, very strongly recommend anything written by Jonathan Hickman, who started writing for Marvel with Fantastic Four, and then went on to Avengers and eventually wrote Secret Wars. So if you like some extremely heady, very weird sci-fi, I would heartily recommend that as well.
Cool.
So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks everyone for reading The Vision. And I promise to sit quietly and not recommend any further comics for a while unless people ask.
I might ask, though.
Oh, well, there you go. Any further thoughts for anyone?
Go read Kelly Sue DeConnick's Captain Marvel, and also she is married to Matt Fraction, and they write a comic called Sex Criminals together.
Sex Criminals is very funny.
Also,
That's
Bitch Planet.
good. Yeah, the fact that they're married was like kind of blew my mind because I love both of them. So I was very excited that I was like, these two are living together and making the best comics. This is amazing.
Excellent. So yeah, I think if we'll close it for today, I don't know what we're planning on talking about next week. Future.
Well, the two games of the year are coming out on Friday, so.
Of course, I think it'll be a lot of Monster Hunter chat. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. Alexa's just started playing music.
What a way to end the podcast.
Is that the Monster Hunter theme?
The best game of the year.
That was very weird. It just started playing like orchestral music.
Huh.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in and on live or for listening on the recording. We appreciate everybody who listens to us, all 3 to 5 of you.
You guys are great.
Shout out to Erica's grandma.
Yep, shout out to Erica's grandma. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy The Vision. It can be purchased very reasonably at multiple outlets, including Amazon.com. And I actually would totally give that to my grandparents. Like, as a complete aside, I think that would probably translate quite well to the majority of people. But anyway, yeah, again, thanks for listening. Next week we'll probably be talking about Monster Hunter World. So apart from Alison, who doesn't look like she's that interested.
I'll play it. Maybe, okay, the demo's still going. Maybe after this podcast, I'm going to go download the demo and see what I feel like about it.
Yeah, if you want to play together, I'm free for a couple hours, so yeah.
Cool, I'll go download the demo.
I can't play right now because I'm going to go to bed, but I will be playing tomorrow. So I'm going to try and get some people together and fight that big bad boss. Andre will probably still be awake for the morning of my time. So
yeah, I've got plans for the afternoon though. So sorry. Where can people find us?
Oh yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SGCH and also on Instagram and loads of other places. S for Sierra, G for Golf, C for Charlie, H for Hotel. Andre?
You can find me leading my facsimile of a human life on Twitter at CoolSlaw with 4 instead of an A because I'm leet like that, and Cray_Dre on Instagram.
I keep saying it every week. I'm a big fan of those handles. It makes me laugh every time. Alison?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at WRITERSERENYTY. And right now my name on Twitter is a big Good Place reference, and I'm very fond of it.
And finally, Alex.
You can Google me and find me creeping on all the cat videos and also probably on some kind of Terminator 2 fan board.
Excellent. I think Terminator 1's better than Terminator 2.
I wholeheartedly
Oh,
disagree.
Jesus. Oh, they're both very good movies for different reasons.
Totally.
You can find Pat online as well, but I don't know how.
Yeah, Jester PC.
He had to drop off. There you go, Jester PC. He's had to drop off, but maybe sometime between this week and next, we'll stream some Monster Hunter or we'll do something fun. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Goodbye.
Eat all the Tide Pods you can.
No, you can't say. You really can't say that. That's don't like.
Forbidden fruit.
One, we're not sponsored by Tide. Two, that we might be culpable for some legal action.
We aren't sponsored by Tide. You can't just talk about Soup Garden.
All right.
All right.
Good night.
Goodbye.
On that note, bye.
Yeah. Bye, guys.